Astonishing transformation. Soldier and K-9 discover a hidden girl whispering "Mama" in a sack. Sergeant Jake Thompson stepped off the bus and felt as though he were being swallowed by a ghost. The familiar sights of his small Midwestern town were just as he remembered, but something had shifted. He was home from deployment, but the war had marked him deep inside. Shadows of chaos clung to him, whispering memories of fear and heartache, while his loyal K-9 partner, Max, stayed glued by his side, sensing the turbulence in Jake's heart. On one crisp autumn afternoon, Jake wandered through the industrial outskirts, where crumbling factories stood like forgotten giants. The leaves crunched underfoot, echoing the unsettled state of his mind. As they strolled, a dilapidated factory caught his eye. Its broken windows resembled shattered dreams, and a bittersweet nostalgia tugged at him. He felt a compelling urge to investigate, to step into the shadows and push past the memories that haunted him. "Let's check it out, buddy," Jake murmured to Max together. They slipped inside, the air thick with dust and silence. As they moved through the darkness, a faint sound broke through the stillness, a soft whisper. "Mama." The whisper gnawed at his chest. He turned to Max, who paused with his ears perked, urging Jake to follow the sound. Heart racing, Jake approached a discarded sack lying in a corner. He knelt down, pulling the fabric aside. His breath caught in his throat. Nestled inside was a terrified young girl, no older than 6. Her wide eyes held an ocean of fear, longing for safety. "Hey there, little one," Jake said gently, his voice trembling. He scooped her up, cradling her like a fragile bird. "What's your name?" "Maria," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. As Maria clung to him, something shifted within Jake. The burden of his own sorrow morphed into a fierce responsibility for this girl. He felt the echo of his own battles resonate in her large, scared eyes. She revealed that she had fled her home to escape violence, her small story a reflection of countless struggles in their town. Jake knew that protecting her would be challenging, especially with the emotional turmoil swirling within him. Word spread quickly, and soon Jake found himself at the center of a heart-wrenching debate. Some hailed him as a hero, others, swayed by their own biases, whispered judgments behind his back. "Who does he think he is?" they'd say, burdened by their own prejudices about poverty and families in need. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Torn between his own need for healing and the pull to nurture Maria, Jake faced a daunting crossroads. The fear of failing her weighed heavily on his heart, fighting against his yearning to rebuild both her life and perhaps his own. As families met to discuss community issues, Jake's inner battle raged on. Could he break through the chains of his past while lifting Maria from the shadows? Just when he thought he saw a glimmer of hope, a new challenge loomed ahead. Would he have the strength to face it? The whispers of hope danced with the echoes of despair, leaving Jake and little Maria teetering on the edge of their fates, uncertain of what tomorrow might hold. The wind howled as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dying embers of the day. Jake sat on the porch steps of the town's community center, cradling Maria in his arms. The weight of the world sat heavy on his shoulders, but in this moment, her warmth was a balm for his bruised spirit. Max lay at their feet, the loyal companion ever watchful. "Do you miss your mama?" Jake asked softly, brushing a wayward hair from Maria's forehead. She nodded, her lips trembling. "I want her back. I want to go home." The rawness of her words pierced his heart. Each tear on her cheek felt like a reminder of the innocence shattered by violence. He wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, but deep down, he felt the tremors of doubt quake within him. "I'll help you find her," I promise, he said, his voice firm. His hand squeezed her gently, a vow, a tether, an alliance. Despite his resolve, he was painfully aware that Maria's home was not just an address. The night spent trembling at the sound of raised voices, the fear of what waited behind those closed doors, all of it haunted him. He couldn't erase her past, but maybe he could give her a future that didn't feel so fragile. As the town hall meeting began, voices clashed like thunder. Neighbors debated heatedly about what to do with Maria, and Jake sat quietly, gathering strength and resolve for what he knew was coming. "We can't just bring her into our homes, it's too dangerous," a man's voice boomed through the hall, fear and distrust coloring his words. "She's just a child. We can't send her back to that." "She deserves a chance," Jake broke in, surprising even himself. The room fell silent, eyes shifting between him and the others. "What do you know about her life, Thompson?" Another voice snapped, filled with animosity. "You've been gone a long time. This is not your fight." Jake gritted his teeth, anger bubbling in his chest. "This isn't just about what I want. It's about her. She's scared and alone." His voice echoed back to him, the desperation spilling out, raw and real. "Look, we need to think about our own families first," a woman countered, shaking her head. "We can't open our doors to every lost child. We don't know what they bring with them." The room erupted into a chorus of disagreements, but one voice mattered most. Little Maria, who had been silent until now, lifted her tiny hands. "I just want to be safe, please," she whimpered, her eyes searching the crowd for compassion. The atmosphere shifted. Some faces softened as the sound of her fear stole the breath from their lungs. Jake felt the cracks in their collective armor. "What if we find her family?" A newcomer spoke up, a member of the local church, her voice calming and sincere. "We can work together to help her. There are people who care." Jake nodded. Hope surged within him like a flame flickering against the wind. Maybe they could find a way to stitch back together what had been torn apart. But just as he dared to feel the warmth of that spark, a heavy hand fell on his shoulder. It was Sheriff Miller, a figure of authority but also a man of few words. "We need to ask the right questions. Are you prepared for what that may uncover?" Jake's heart raced. The truth could unveil more than they bargained for. His own past was no pristine record, intertwining with the turmoil that had gripped this town. "I'll do whatever it takes," he replied resolutely, standing tall for the little girl still resting in his arms. "She deserves that much." As the meeting continued, and opinions began to sway subtly in their favor, Jake realized they had to tread carefully. He turned to Maria, whispering a promise into her ear. "We'll make it through this together." Yet in the back of his mind, the thought lingered, what truths lay hidden in the dark, and were they strong enough to face them together? As the meeting adjourned, Jake felt a storm brewing. Shadows loomed larger than ever, and for every step forward, he could sense the riptides of his own history threatening to pull him under again. Would they uncover a story that could fracture their fragile community? Would he be able to shield Maria from the inevitable clash waiting just around the corner? As he looked into her trusting eyes, determination ignited within him, but a nagging anxiety coiled in his gut. What if the answers they sought only deepened the scars they were trying to mend? The following day dawned heavy with unspoken worries as Jake prepared to face the town once more. He had spent the night curled up in a rickety chair in the community center, Maria clutching Max's collar, finding peace in the undemanding warmth of the dog. Each time she stirred, her small fingers squeezed tighter, as if the world after dark lurked just outside the door, waiting to drag her back into the shadows. As morning light spilled through the windows, Jake rose, determined. He needed answers. They all did. "Are you ready to help?" he asked Maria as she rubbed the sleep from her eyes, still blinking against the day. Her small nod filled him with resolve, lifting the weight of despair that had settled like a stone in his gut. They gathered at the center again, a mix of anxious expressions painted across the townsfolk's faces. Jake stood tall, taking a deep breath. "We need to form a search party," he proposed, his voice steady despite the murmurings of doubt from the crowd. A deep silence followed his words as the implications set in. "What if we found her family?" A woman interjected, her brow furrowed in concern. "What if they're dangerous?" Jake clenched his fists, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. Maria deserves to know where she came from. She deserves to feel safe." His words resonated, some heads nodding in agreement. The collective fear seemed to ebb slightly, replaced by a flicker of hope. Encouraged, Jake looked at Maria, who sat at a corner, seeming small against the backdrop of anxious adults. She looked at him, her bright eyes shining with trust that propelled his heart. In her gaze, he found a purpose: he would protect her. As they began organizing, people paired off, some grabbing supplies while others gathered essential information about Maria's family. Jake turned to Sheriff Miller, who had been standing quietly, observing the crowd. "Do you know anything about her?" Jake pressed, hoping for an ally. The sheriff's mouth was tight, but he finally sighed, running a hand over his chin. "I've seen families broken by shadows in this town. Not every reunion is as happy as you hope," he warned, his tone serious. "But she deserves the truth, just be ready for whatever that might bring." With determination, Jake pulled out a worn notebook, his heart racing as he started jotting down leads. Each name written felt like a thread pulling him closer to understanding Maria's haunting past. After 2 hours, a town elder spoke up. "There's a lady up on the ridge rose." Their eyes turned to him, curiosity igniting in quiet excitement. "Heard she once had a child taken from her. Could be worth a visit." Maria's lips pressed into a thin line as everyone shuffled uncomfortably. Despite the uncertainty, Jake could feel their collective heartbeat answering the call of compassion. He turned to Maria, kneeling so they were eye to eye. "Are you ready to meet her?" With a breath that whispered of bravery, Maria nodded, the light in her eyes shining brighter. Each step felt daunting, but they were one step closer to healing, and this time, they were taking it together. Once they reached the ridge, the road narrowed, flanked by wildflowers. As they approached the small, run-down house, Jake's heart raced. The porch creaked under their weight, and he knocked gently on the door, every heartbeat pulsing with hope and fear. A moment passed before the door swung open slowly. An older woman, wearing a faded apron, met their gaze. Her eyes widened, recognition washing over her face like a wave pulling at the shore. Who are you?" She stammered, but her voice held a tremor that suggested she already knew. Jake felt the air around them shift, thick with history and unspoken words. He glanced sideways at Maria, her small hand shaking in his grip. "We think we've found someone who belongs with you," he revealed hesitantly. As he spoke, the world faded around them, leaving only the two women caught in the web of memories. Would this meeting unearth a bond that could heal old wounds, or would it open floodgates to a past too painful to revisit? He held his breath, the moment stretching infinitely. What secrets lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed? The silence hung heavy as the older woman's gaze flickered between Jake, Maria, and the doorframe that framed a sliver of the world beyond. Tears glimmered in her eyes, threatening to spill over. Time seemed to freeze as Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down on them. "Please, come in," she finally breathed, stepping aside, her voice cracking. Jake and Maria exchanged a quick glance, a mixture of trepidation and resolve. Together, they crossed the threshold into a place that felt both familiar and foreign, the air thick with the scent of dust and memories. Once inside, Maria's small hand slipped from Jake's grasp as she instinctively moved closer to the woman. The warmth in her gaze lit up the dim room. "Are you?" Maria trailed off, the question hanging unformed as if the very act of speaking her truth was daunting. The woman knelt down to meet her eye to eye. "My sweet girl," she whispered, voice trembling with a blend of sorrow and hope. "I've been waiting for you. I thought I lost you forever." The words were gentle but laden with unspoken pain. Jake leaned against the doorway, feeling like an intruder in this moment. He watched as the two of them connected like threads weaving a tapestry of lost years. Maria's small frame trembled slightly as she stepped forward, her little body reaching for the woman who seemed to embody the very essence of home. "But my name is Maria," the girl replied, her voice steady yet softened by uncertainty. "I thought maybe it wasn't real." "Yes, Maria. That has always been your name," the woman said, her tears finally spilling onto her cheeks like rain on parched earth. "I'm Rose. Your mother." A wave of emotion rushed through the room, drowning out words. Jake, feeling the suffocating weight of the unspoken past, stepped forward. "Rose, is there anything you can tell us about what happened?" His voice was steady, but he could feel Maria's small frame stiffen beside him, the weight of the unknown hovering like a storm cloud. Rose looked away, her gaze falling to the floor. A deep sigh escaped her lips, like a colorful strand unraveling from her tightly wounded heart. "Years ago, there were whispers. Whispers of danger. I tried to protect her, but the sentences trailed off like ghosts." In that moment, Jake could see the shapes of pain, the essence of a promise broken by circumstances beyond control. He felt the room grow heavier with regret, with anger, and with the desperate need for healing. Maria tucked her small hand into Rose's. "I'm not afraid of you." I came back. Her voice was soft, but within it lay the strength of a child who had faced shadows and found the sunlight, however faint. Suddenly, an unexpected resolve shook Rose out of her daze. She straightened, the resolve of a mother finally rekindled. "What I thought was the end was just the beginning, but we need to find out if there's still a threat. We can't go back to the past without knowing." Jake felt his heart race. This was at a turning point. They could uncover the hidden truths, the buried secrets that had haunted this family for years. Together, they could break those chains. Maria looked between Jake and Rose, her voice steady. "I want to help. What do we do next?" A plan was forming, and within it called the echoes of courage. Jake nodded, adrenaline surging through him. This was no longer just about finding a family, it was about reclaiming a future. "We'll find out everything we can, Rose, and we'll face whatever comes together." But just as hope began to bloom, a distant, sinister sound rumbled through the trees outside. A chilling reminder that some shadows never truly disappear. What was that? Maria whispered, eyes wide. And in that moment, Jake knew their journey had only just begun. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat echoing his rising anxiety. He glanced at Maria, whose eyes, wide with fear, reflected the dim light hanging around them. Rose, still knelt, shifted, her expression morphing from warmth to alarm as the unsettling sound reverberated through the trees. "What was that?" Maria's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Rose pulled her daughter closer, fear flickering in her eyes. "We need to be cautious," she said, a stark gravity infusing her tone. It sounded like something moving out there. The room embraced a silence that felt as thick as the walls. Jake stepped toward the door, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread. "We can't sit here. We need to find out if it's just the wind or something worse," he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. He glanced back at the two of them, trying to inject confidence into the moment they stood on the threshold of uncertainty. "I'll stay here with Mama," Maria declared firmly, clinging to Rose like a lifeline. Rose's gaze softened, a maternal instinct warring with fear. "No, Maria. You're safer with us." But if something's out there, a wave of protectiveness surged through Jake as he swallowed, silently reaching a decision. "I'll go check it out. You two stay put. If anything seems off," Maria interjected. "But what if you then? I'll come back," he promised with a forced smile, pushing the door ajar. Eerie twilight seeped into the dim room, dancing with shadows as Jake stepped outside. The cool air brushed against his skin, raising goosebumps as he scanned the dimly lit yard. The trees loomed ominously, their branches whispering secrets. Ready for anything, Jake slowly advanced, stepping lightly to avoid making noise. The sound had faded, but he felt it something lurking, waiting, just beyond reach. He moved cautiously towards the back of the house, where the sound had come from, every breath a reminder of the weight of what lay ahead. As he rounded the corner, the last of the evening light caught something glistening in the underbrush. He hesitated, then moved closer, his stomach tightening with apprehension. There, nearly hidden, was a tattered cloth sack. There it was again. A soft, broken sound, repeating like a prayer. "Mama," a chill prickled Jake's skin. The voice was small and trembled with longing. He dropped to his knees, carefully inspecting the sack. Heart thundering, he unfastened it, revealing a shadowy figure curled inside. "Hey, are you okay?" he whispered, his voice steadying as he sought to gauge the child's fear. The figure stirred, blinking against the fading light. Large, frightened eyes met his, wide with uncertainty. "Mama," the small girl croaked again, shrinking deeper into the bag. Jake felt his heart ache. He had come looking for answers about Maria's past and now, he found this. "Don't worry," he said softly, reaching out. "I'm here to help you." Just then, a crash echoed behind him. The earth shook with the sudden cacophony, causing him to jerk around. He grabbed the little girl and instinctively shielded her with his body, heart racing. Across the yard, dark figures materialized, multiple shadows converging fast. Jake's pulse quickened as he braced himself, knowing he had to protect the innocent life he now cradled in his arms. "What have I gotten into?" he thought, as dread settled in the pit of his stomach. He needed to get back to Rose and Maria. But were they safe? The air grew restless, electric with danger, and Jake knew they wouldn't retreat quietly. A battle was coming and it was about to shake the ground beneath them all. As he sprinted back, the echoes of uncertainty taunted him. Could he truly save them all? Jake's heart raced as he turned to sprint back to the house, each step fueled by urgency. The shadows moved closer, their intentions unclear, but the sound of the little girl's voice still echoed in his mind, raw, desperate, and haunting. "Mama," the weight of the child pressed against him was both a comfort and a burden. He felt her little heart beating fast, mirroring his own. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away, and the darkness lurking in the yard was hungry. He could see the light spilling from the open door of the house, a beacon against the encroaching night. But as he ran, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. A figure, taller and more imposing than the rest, seemed to separate itself from the dark mass creeping towards him. Panic surged within him. He pressed the little girl, whose name he didn't even know, closer against him. "Stay quiet," he whispered, willing his voice to remain steady. She nodded, fear glistening in her eyes. Then, with a sudden rush, one of the shadows lunged forward, sending a chill down Jake's spine. He didn't have time to think, instinct took over. He sidestepped as the figure barreled past him, stumbling into the bushes. In that moment, Jake kept running, heart thumping, every muscle taut with tension. "Jake!" A familiar voice cut through the night air, sending a jolt of hope through him. He turned, face lighting up as he saw Rose standing at the door, her silhouette framed by warm light. "Rose!" he shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "Get Maria inside. Now!" Her eyes widened with fear, but she quickly nodded, disappearing back into the house. Jake could feel the shadows gathering behind him. He had to get to safety. With a few long strides, he charged toward the door, noticing the figures shifting closer, merging into a chaotic mass. "I'm almost there," he thought. He pushed forward, adrenaline coursing through him when suddenly, the girl in his arms whispered, "Wait please, they're my friends." He gasped, the strange twist of her words cutting through his thoughts like a knife. What do you mean? Before she could answer, another crash echoed from the yard, rattling his bones. The figures emerged more clearly now, silhouetted against the night, a small group, each one hazy, yet their intent grew palpable. "Don't move!" he shouted, instinctively shielding the girl further as he stood at the door, gripping the frame tightly. He felt a wave of determination wash over him, fueled by the need to protect not just the child, but the entire family huddled inside. An unfamiliar voice rose from the group. "We're not here to hurt you." Jake narrowed his eyes, weighing their words. He didn't trust the shadows. But he had a small life in his arms, and the weight of responsibility pressed hard against his chest. "What do you want?" he called out, raising his voice to hide the tremor that began to slip through. "Please, we're looking for her." The voice pleaded, desperation cutting through the uncertainty. Jake's gaze darted to the girl, her face pale but somehow resolute. "They're telling the truth," she whispered. "They're my family." In that moment, everything shifted. Hope collided with dread in a warring dance. If what she said was true, would he really let her go back to those shadows? Or was it just a trick waiting to unfold? As the tension coiled tighter, he knew he had to make a decision. The fate of the little girl rested in his hands, but so did the safety of those he loved. Would he dare to trust the shadows, or would he turn away from what he desperately hoped could be a reunion? His determination solidified. "Then let us talk," he declared, setting the stage for a meeting that might change everything. But would it lead to safety or chaos? As he took a step forward, the answers hung heavily in the air, waiting to unravel. Jake took a cautious step forward, his breath hitching in his throat. The shadows had paused, their forms shifting uneasily just beyond the glow of the doorway, but the girl in his arms, the little girl who claimed they were her family, stayed steady. Her brown eyes found comfort in his, an anchor in the swirling uncertainty that surrounded them. "Please just give them a chance," she insisted, her voice small but full of a brave resolve. "I know they look scary, but they're not. They're looking for me. I can feel it." Jake hesitated. The voice that pierced the dark had declared they were no threat, but doubts clawed at him. He glanced back at the open door, feeling the warmth of home beckoning him, then back at the approaching figures. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Cautiously, he lowered his guard, his muscles coiling tightly like a spring. "If you want to talk," he called out, voice steadying, "come closer. But I won't let her go until I understand what's happening here." A pair of figures stepped forward, revealing themselves from the shadows. They were tall, silhouettes softened by the light, but Jake still felt the instinctive urge to protect Maria, the little girl cradled in his arms. His heart pounded, echoing the uncertainty swirling within him, an invisible battle between trust and fear raging in his chest. "Thank you," the voice from before came again, this time clearer. "We're not here to hurt anyone. I promise. My name is Lila and this is my brother, Ethan." Jake studied their faces as they emerged further from the darkness. Lila's eyes shone with worry, while Ethan wore a tense expression, but their intentions seemed charged with urgency rather than malice. The family bond shone through, flickers of desperation sparking in their gaze. "Where have you been?" Maria said, her voice laced with a mixture of joy and fright. She reached out a tiny hand, trembling but resolute. The sight twisted Jake's heart. We lost you," Lila answered, swallowing hard. "We've been searching everywhere." Her eyes darted toward Jake. "Please, she needs to come with us. There's something out there, something." Jake interrupted, a protective instinct sharpening his tone. "What do you mean? Why did she run away?" "Her mother, something happened, and we got separated. We thought we could find her together," Ethan added, glancing uneasily at the growing shadows behind them. "But the longer we stayed out, the harder it was to come back. We thought we might never find her." Jake's mind raced, piecing bits of their story together. As protective as he felt, a part of him struggled, caught in the tug-of-war of responsibility. He had to make a choice that could change everything. "Listen," he said slowly, his voice softer but firm. "If I let her go with you, you need to explain everything." "I want to let you." Before he could finish, a sudden rush of wind swept through the yard, causing the shadows to flicker ominously. The howling and rustling of leaves intensified as if the night itself were alive, feeding off their tension. "Please," Maria whimpered, glancing between Jake and her figures. "I want to go with them. They're my family." Jake's heart dropped. He felt the weight of her plea sink into his bones. What if leaving with them meant safety? What if staying meant danger? A distant thud echoed through the darkness, and a surge of adrenaline shot through him. It was no longer a question of trust, it was about survival. "Fine. But we're all going together. We need to get inside." Before a strangling silence enveloped them. All eyes turned toward the shadows, the figures shifting and merging, suddenly revealing a face that was both familiar and terrifying, emerging violently from the darkness. Jake's body froze, a jolt of recognition coursing through him. The danger was closer than he had ever imagined. "Jake!" A voice cried out, and a chill ran down his spine. "You need to run." What had he walked into? As he stared at the face emerging from the darkness, the truth lurked just out of reach. And suddenly, everything he thought he knew about their world felt like it was crumbling. Would he be able to protect the girl in his arms, or would they all be swept away into the dark? The urgent need to uncover the unfolding story pushed against him like a rising tide. They had little time left and answers waited just beyond the shadows, striking a haunting truth in the night air. Everything seemed to swirl into chaos as Jake processed the voice calling his name. Recognition ignited fear. He stepped back instinctively, tightening his grip around Maria. The face emerging from the shadows shifted as the figure took another step closer, and Jake's heart sank even further. "Megan?" he prompted in disbelief, staring at his older sister, whose face was etched with terror. She looked worn, her hair messy and her clothes torn as if she had been running for days. "What happened? Where are you?" "Jake! You need to get out of here!" Megan shouted, her voice rising in urgency. "It's not safe. They're coming." "What's coming?" Fear twisted in him as he tried to make sense of everything happening. Was Megan in danger, too? He looked at Lila and Ethan, who stood baffled. They seemed to understand something he didn't. "Please," Maria sobbed, confused, caught in the middle of a tense family reunion. "I just want to go with them." "I want to let you go anywhere until I know it's safe," Jake said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Megan, what do you mean? Who's coming?" But Megan shook her head violently, her eyes darting away from the shadows now encroaching on their tight circle. "You don't understand. They're hunting for us. We have to go. It's not just about you anymore, it's about all of us." At that moment, the shadows shifted once more, revealing more menacing shapes. Jake felt the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. He glanced down at Maria, who looked small, trembling in his arms, trusting him completely. "They're here for Maria," Lila whispered. "We have to move. They know she's with you." "What? Why?" Jake asked, disbelief mixing with mounting urgency. "Because she's special," Ethan interjected, his voice steady but urgent. "They think she can lead them to something powerful, something they want to control." A deep growl echoed from the dark, sending a shiver racing up Jake's spine, and he took a step back instinctively, dragging Maria with him. "Jake, no. We can't stay here," Megan cried, her voice breaking. "We need to find a place to hide. Quickly." As the ominous figures closed in, Jake's mind flashed through possibilities. Unbearable panic churned in the pit of his stomach. "Megan. Do you still have the keys to the car?" "Not here," but we need to move. Then we run, Jake decided, determination igniting a flame of courage. Holding Maria tight, he turned to Ethan and Lila. We're all in this together. No one gets left behind. Follow me. Lila urged, extending her hand. We have a safe spot, but we must hurry. Without waiting for a response, Jake jogged in the direction she pointed, every footfall echoing in his ears like a countdown to the inevitable darkness. He could hear the rush of shadows behind them now, the sound growing louder as they all ran together, their hearts pounding in unison, propelled by the fight to survive. But as they raced through the overgrown yard, the sensation of being hunted weighed heavily on him. Doubt clawed at his mind, were they really heading toward safety, or deeper into the unknown? The silhouettes of shadows against the night sky pushed him to quicken their pace. They almost reached the shrubbery when a sudden scream pierced the night, spinning Jake around. No! Not her! Megan shouted, the terror in her eyes meeting Jake's. And just like that, the world around them grew darker, as if the very air turned to ash. Jake's pulse quickened. What had he done? As Maria looked up at him, her innocent eyes filled with fear, he knew he had to make a choice that would change everything once more. How could he protect her when danger whispered from every corner? Stay close to me, he yelled as they pushed forward into the thickening trees. But was it even enough to outrun the shadows that chased them? Fingers trembling, he glanced back at the path behind them. Something sinister hung in the air, a presence sending shivers down his spine. What lay ahead was uncertain, and a heavy dread settled over him. Whatever it is, he said under his breath, we have to face it together. In that moment, he understood that survival was not just about running, it was about confronting the shadows crawling toward them, one desperate step at a time. Would they have the strength to face what was coming for them, or would their past drag them back into the dark? The trees loomed overhead, their branches like jagged fingers clawing at the sky, and Jake felt as if the night itself was trying to consume him. Each breath he took was shallow, laced with anxiety. He could sense the shadows trailing behind them, relentless, hungry. Keep moving, he urged, his voice pitching higher, betraying the rising fear inside. Megan led the way, darting through the dense thicket, her figure barely visible in the gloom. Jake squeezed Maria against his side as they stumbled onward, her tiny body instinctively searching for safety. The cry that had shattered the air still reverberated in his mind. It wasn't just a scream, it was a warning. Where are we even going? Ethan gasped, trying to keep pace. This doesn't feel right. Lila said she has a spot. Jake shouted, pushing down the doubt creeping into his heart. But in a moment like this, what did safe really mean? Megan paused just long enough to glance back, her face pale and wild. Not much farther. Just trust me. She pushed onward, leading them deeper into the depths of the forest, where shadows danced among the trees, and the air crackled with unease. Suddenly, a firefly flickered past, illuminating the ground for just a heartbeat, revealing a path overgrown but visible. This way, Jake called, veering off the initial trail. It felt slightly less suffocating, somewhat hopeful. But just as they caught a fleeting glimpse of their escape, a low growl echoed around them, deep and rumbling. It was a sound that vibrated through Jake's bones, palpable and threatening. A tangle of fear and adrenaline surged back into him. They're close. Lila breathed, her eyes wide as she cast desperate glances around. We need to hurry. Jake's heart raced. Why did they keep coming? Did they know something he didn't? Why won't they leave us alone? He muttered beneath his breath, but in truth, he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. A moment later, from behind a dense cluster of bushes, a figure stepped out. It wasn't anything they expected. A small girl, no older than 6 or 7, stood there, wide-eyed and trembling, clutching a sack tightly to her chest. Help me, she whispered, her voice barely above a sigh. Please. What the? Jake's steps faltered as he took in the scene, the fleeting thought of the pursuit slipping from his mind. He crouched to her level, trying to read her expression. "Who are you? Are you okay?" The girl's frightened eyes darted to the shadows creeping closer, and she clutched the sack tighter. They want me back. You can't let them take me." Jake glanced at Megan, who had come to see what he was doing, confusion written all over her face. "Should we help her?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "Yes. We can't leave her," Jake insisted, glancing over his shoulder. The growling was louder now, more insistent. Time was running thin. Crowding closer, Jake addressed the girl. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered, her fragile voice shaking. In that moment, Jake felt a wave of protective instinct wash over him. Another person to save. Another reason to fight. "All right, Lily. We'll help you. But you have to trust us." He took her small hand in his, feeling the frailness of her grip contrasting sharply with the urgency of their situation. "Stay close, and keep moving. We're not leaving anyone behind." As they turned to flee again, Lily looked up with those innocent eyes that somehow held a weight of tragedy far beyond her years. "Are they coming for you too?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jake felt his heart lurch. "Yes," he admitted, but he cleared his throat. "But we're not going to let them catch us." With that, they ran together, the shadows swallowing them into their depths, Jake leading the charge with renewed determination. The weight of their shared struggle suddenly felt lighter, as though together they could face whatever lurked in the dark. But as they advanced, a new terror loomed ahead, a chilling realization that drew a line between safety and nightmare. What if the shadows weren't just hunters lurking outside? What if they were already inside, waiting to strike? Their desperate escape had only just begun, and Jake had to wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the darkness that awaited them. The tension in the air was thick as Jake sprinted through the underbrush, Maria and Lily gripping his hands tightly. The shadows swirled behind them, nipping at their heels, but he pushed forward, driven by the urgency of their escape. They were a ragtag team now, two vulnerable girls and a soldier forged in the flames of battle, now in an unyielding fight for safety. "Don't look back. Just keep moving," he called out, glancing over his shoulder only to face a surge of darkness creeping closer. His heart thudded in his chest, echoing a primal fear that urged him to go faster. Megan led the way, eyes scanning their surroundings for any hint of shelter, any flicker of hope. "There's a cabin up ahead. We can hide there," she shouted, directing them toward a barely visible structure cloaked by trees. Each step brought with it a fresh breath of panic, but Jake also felt something spark within him, a surge of adrenaline that pushed him onward. The cabin stood like an old sentinel amid the chaos, an abandoned refuge from their pursuers. "Move," he urged, urgency propelling him forward. As they reached the door, Ethan swung it open, and they tumbled inside, breathless and trembling. The interior was dark and musty, memories of long-past joy nestled in the walls. But there was no time to dwell, the shadows were alive outside. Jake quickly scanned the sparse room, a table, a couple of chairs, and a window overlooking the dense forest. "We can't stay long," he panted, shutting the door behind them. "We need to barricade it." Together, they pushed a rickety table against the door, the sound of wood scraping against wood resonating through the air. The moment felt electric, their hearts racing in sync, pumped by the fear of what lurked just outside. "Who are they? Why are they after you?" Jake asked Lily, kneeling down to meet her frightened gaze. Maria pressed close against his side, her eyes wide, reflecting the confusion and dread swirling in the room. "They think I can take them to something I don't even understand. I just ran." Lily's voice quivered as tears pooled in her eyes. Jake's heart broke for her. He placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now, for a moment. We'll figure this out together." But doubt gnawed at him. He turned to Megan. Can you find a way to call for help? She shook her head, fear etched into her features. No signal out here. We're all alone. A thud reverberated through the cabin, causing the girls to jump. Jake stiffened, feeling the darkness outside close in. We need to prepare for what's coming, he said, his voice firm. In that instant, he transformed back into a soldier, surveying the landscape and pulling from the depths of his training. Ethan grabbed an old frying pan from a shelf, wielding it as if it could hold back the tide of fear. I'll stand watch by the window, he said, positioning himself with strength. Jake nodded. We'll need someone to distract them. If they come in through the door, we can find a way to escape through a window. The girls looked frightened, but he held their gazes steady, wishing to bestow courage through his eyes alone. A moment of stillness hung in the air, offering a sliver of sanctuary amid the storm. Stay close to each other, he urged, feeling an unshakable bond forming, not just between their small group but within himself. An instinct to protect flared bright through the shadows of his own trauma. Another thud hit the door, followed by a soft, slithering whisper. We know you're in there. Jake's insides twisted. The shadows didn't just hunt for those in danger, they fed on their fear. Suddenly, everything transformed. He clenched his fists, gripping the mantle of protection tightly. We're not afraid. His voice boomed, a ripple of strength the shadowed night couldn't absorb. Jake? Maria whispered, courage wavering in her tiny voice. We're in this together, Maria, he said, kneeling down to meet her eyes. You have to believe that. Together, we're stronger. Lily's small hand slipped into Maria's, as if grasping tightly to hope, igniting a light amidst the impending darkness. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair and urgency. Let us in. Megan, are you ready? Jake said, catching her worried gaze. Yes, she said, voice steadying in the face of chaos. Let us do this. In unison, they regrouped, a swirl of determination and defiance. Holding their ground, they prepared. The shattering of glass echoed through the air, sending a final jolt of adrenaline through their veins. As the door creaked open, shadows surged like a tidal wave. Jake braced himself, knowing this confrontation could redefine everything not just for them, but for the shadows they fought against. In that fleeting moment, clarity washed over him. Hope didn't dwell in the absence of fear, but in the choice to stand firm against it. Now! He shouted, as the shadows crashed in, ready for the storm that would change their lives forever. In a rush of motion, they faced what they feared most, not in retreat, but with the strength they had forged together. And as the whirlwind of chaos unfolded, Jake understood this was the truth of the battle. Embracing vulnerability was their greatest weapon. They would fight, not just for survival, but for the connection that bound them as family in darkness. In that moment of strife, the world sharpened into focus. They would prevail together or fall into the shadows as one. And with that, they charged into the unknown, united in heart, fueled by love and the fierce determination that rang with every heartbeat. No one stays behind. Jake roared as they faced their fate together, ignited by the unyielding power of hope. That night would not break them. They were a family, battling through the storm, unbreakable, unstoppable, together. And as dawn broke over the horizon, they knew they would emerge from the darkness transformed, ready to reclaim their lives and find the path that awaited them beyond the shadows. So take a moment, everyone. Hit that subscribe button now, don't get left behind. We have stories that inspire and cast hope, and you need to be a part of this journey. Leave a like now to show your support, help the algorithm spread hope. Comment below about your thoughts. How do you think the transformation of these characters rings true in your life? And please share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need a lift in their lives. Don't wait not even one more second. True fans know the power of unity.